Greetings, fellow travelers, vagrants, explorers, wildlanders, and welcome to episode 80 of the Retro Wildlands. My name is Nomad, and this is my gaming podcast where I like to share my thoughts and experiences with a video game that I've discovered or rediscovered while roaming the gaming wildlands. Thank you very much for tuning into the show today. It's always good to have such great company as we gather around the campfire to share stories of our adventures and then set off together as we create more. There are times, however, that instead of pushing forward into something new, it's almost as fulfilling to re-explore a path already taken, especially if that path brought you joy or a wonderful memory. As I was thinking about this exact thing, the wind around here started to howl a little louder and things started to feel a little off. I showed up to base camp this morning to find Dee Dee, our fearless canine expedition leader, staring very intently at a rat that had made its way onto the site. Not super unusual on its own. On the trail we see all manner of flora and fauna, but what is unusual is the fact that the rat was staring back. Not only that, it was breathing, heavily, mind you, like it had just finished a marathon. Dee Dee gave me a perplexed look, the kind that bore a bit of concern. Now, I am no scientist, but when the wildlife starts acting like it's got a vendetta, that's usually our cue to pack up and leave. Of course, Dee Dee disagrees. There's something familiar about that rat, like we've seen it and experienced it before during one of our very first ever expeditions. I remember horrific creatures, monstrous mutations, and a headstrong blonde woman looking to find herself in all of the chaos. When the rat eventually did run off, Dee Dee confidently told me that this was a path that we had treaded in the past, and now that we're better equipped with many expeditions under our belts, it is time for a re-exploration. Well, my friends, Dee Dee's the leader around here, so he calls the shots, so go ahead and grab your gear. Be sure to keep your distance from anything in the wilderness that even so much as twitches, and for the love of all things retro, don't trust your mitochondria. On today's episode, we are checking out a video game that is near and dear to my heart and my memories as a fledgling gamer. Back in the mid to late 1990s, I was very fortunate enough to be around for when video game developers were knee-deep in trying new things. SquareSoft was one such developer, and after their incredible success with Final Fantasy VII on the original PlayStation, they had some spending money, and they were not afraid to experiment a little. Parasite Eve was one of those beautifully strange experiments that could only have come from SquareSoft during that era. Blending cinematic storytelling, survival horror tension, and RPG mechanics, it carved out a space that didn't quite exist at the time. It wasn't Resident Evil and it wasn't Final Fantasy, but it borrowed just enough from both to feel familiar while doing something entirely all its own. Set against the backdrop of a chilling sci-fi horror narrative, the game follows NYPD officer Aya Brea as she faces a threat that's as unsettling as it is oddly grounded in real-world theory. For me personally, this was a game that I was drawn to because of Final Fantasy VII. At the time, Square could do no wrong in my eyes, so seeing them take that RPG formula and inject it into something darker, something more mature, and absolutely experimental, it immediately had my attention. And what I found was a game that stuck with me in a very different way. It wasn't just about leveling up or saving the world from some crazy threat, it was about the atmosphere. The sense of unease I felt when I played through the game, and a kind of slow-burning dread that felt completely unique. With a mixture of excellent music, a unique combat system, a somewhat intuitive upgrade system for gear, and a story that taught me more about the human body than I was expecting, Parasite Eve was a game that I played a ton of and still play on occasion today. But the real question is, does Parasite Eve still hold up today as a unique third-person cinematic RPG experience, Or is it a relic of a time when Square was willing to take risks that we just do not see anymore? Well, it's probably easy to guess how I still feel about this game, and longtime listeners may remember that I covered this game on our second ever podcast episode. But now that several years have passed, my audio editing skills have improved, and I'm a little older, and I'd like to think a little bit wiser. So I wanted to give you all another run through of this game and try to explain in a new way why Parasite Eve is special to me, and I suspect many more of you out there as well. At the end of the day, we don't get games like this anymore, and that is a damn shame. So it's only right that we take a detour on our expedition and go back to check out an all-time classic that, for me, still stands the test of time. Now, before we get going, for those of you new to the show, I'd like to kick things off first by chatting it up with you all a bit in our opening segment, where I give you a peek behind the scenes here in the Retro Wildlands. Depending on what's on my mind, I might talk about what's going on with the show, what games I've been playing, projects I've got in the works, or whatever else happens to form deep within my cellular structure and manifest into this here microphone. Ugh. That's like 2 transitional misses in a row. I need to get better at these, I think. But anyway, I'll also take some time to read and respond to comments and thoughts that you have all shared on our social media pages about Parasite Eve, so the community can get a chance to sound off as well. Now, if that doesn't interest you though, and you're just here for the Parasite Eve cinematic RPG experience, no worries at all, you can skip ahead. I'm gonna shoot for about 20 minutes again, and then you can jump right into the game talk. I will be sure to include timestamps in the show notes so you know exactly where you need to go if you don't want to stick around, but as always, I encourage you to stick around by the campfire just a little bit longer before we head out on our expedition. We'll talk a little video games and some other fun stuff, and I cannot think of a better way to prepare for the wild ride ahead of us. So, without further ado, let's kick things off with our opening segment that I like to call Campfire Catchup. First things first. Everything is good in my end of the wilderness. Family's doing well, life is steady, and honestly, I can't complain too much. Now, if you live anywhere near Ohio, you already know what I'm about to say, and that is, the weather has been doing that thing again. One day it's warm, the next day it feels like winter's making a comeback out of spite, and it's all been driving me absolutely bananas, but lately, we have been getting more of those warmer days, and I can feel it doing wonders for my mood. And Dee over there, my little boy, he and his brother Dexter are absolutely thriving right now. Warmer weather means more walks, which means more time outside, and that all translates to the both of them living their best dog lives, and making sure that I'm out there with them whether I planned on it or not. I'm especially thankful for the nicer weather because I need to get up off my behind a bit more, so I am glad that things are finally evening out over here. Now, while things are going pretty well over here, I do want to take a second to say, I know things have felt a little inconsistent lately. Social posts and episode timing hasn't been as steady as I'd like it to be, and that is completely on me again. Real life has just been a lot recently, and a lot of things have cropped up both at home, but especially over at my day job. There are a lot of changes happening, and my role as a supervisor has meant longer days, increased responsibility, and that has all led me to just being completely mentally drained by the time I get home. I gotta say, there have been some nights where I want to sit down and write and edit and do things for the show, but I just do not have it in me. Just the other night, I came home and I sat out on the porch with my wife, Justine, and the kids, and we just decompressed for a while. No screens, no pressure, just a moment to breathe, and all of us needed it too. That was a really enjoyable night, and sometimes that's what you gotta do. So, I feel like I'm always apologizing for the inconsistency around here, but I appreciate you all, and thank you all again for your patience as I churn things out whenever it is that I can. I'm still doing my best to make sure this is something that I spend more time doing so I can get back to that weekly interval that I started off the year with. We're not too far off, but we have hit some bumps. when I do put something out there, whether it's a full-length podcast episode like this one of our shorter expedition log episodes, or a written review over on the website, I am absolutely touched by the continued positivity and the good-natured discussions that crop up. All of that is definitely something I look forward to, and definitely something that gets me motivated whenever I think about it, so thank you all again for the support. So with that said, the show is still very much alive and well. As a reminder, especially if you are new around these parts, if you're ever wondering what's going on or you're looking for something to dive into, our website, theretrowildlands.com, is always up and running. It is the best place to catch everything in one spot, whether it's new episodes to the show, new blog posts or game reviews, or you just want to dig around into the archive and see all the things that have come before. And of course, you could always follow along on social media as well. The podcast has a presence over on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky, so if you want updates, behind-the-scenes stuff, or just a little retro flavor in your daily scroll, be sure to follow the show on your favorite social media platform. Now, as far as what I've actually been playing lately, I have been on a bit of a ride with a specific game series lately. After talking about Little Nightmares last episode, I ended up going down the rabbit hole with Little Nightmares 2, Little Nightmares 3, and a little game called Reanimal. The best part, though, about going through all of these games is that I didn't have to go through them alone. Justine ended up joining me for all of it, which is kind of wild because she is not a fan of spooky or suspenseful anything. Oh, Little Nightmares. These games, man, they are something special. All of them are very dark, they're unsettling, but they're also weirdly beautiful in the way that they tell their stories without saying much at all, and that by far is my favorite part of these experiences. The whole series, especially the second game in the series, Little Nightmares 2, has a way about building this constant tension, this feeling that something isn't quite right, and the games all lean into this idea. And getting to experience all of that together with my gal, reacting to moments, figuring things out side by side, it made the whole experience through all of these games that much more memorable. Reanimal, in particular, was a standout for us because we could play it couch co-op, which added a whole different layer to the experience. There is just something about sharing those tense moments, messing up together, laughing it off, or just sitting there after experiencing something horrific. I loved every second of all of that. It's one thing to play a great game, but it's another to be able to share it with someone like that. Personally, I highly recommend any of these games if you're at all interested in puzzle platformers, but you also have a soft spot for the spooky and the macabre. Woo! And then, on the completely other side of things, I have been spending a lot of time with a little game called Pragmata. If you follow the show on social media already, you probably saw me holding up my physical copy of the game in triumph. I have never really brought it up in any capacity that I can remember, but I have been very excited for this game for quite a while now. This new IP from Capcom has been a really, really nice surprise. At a high level, this sci-fi action-adventure is set on the moon. You play as a man named Hugh, an engineer sent as part of a team to the Cradle, a sort of settlement on the moon. Things go wrong almost immediately, and Hugh is separated from his team. Afterwards, he's found by a little girl who turns out to be an android that Hugh names Diana. Alone, cut off, and unsure of just what the hell is happening, Hugh and Diana make for a communications tower to hopefully make contact with Earth. I am about 9 hours-ish into Pragmata as I write this script, and I am absolutely in love with this game. Story-wise, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what's happening as plot points and revelations are being drip-fed at a pretty slow pace. In between it all, though, is the evolving relationship between Hugh and Diana, and it is wholesome as hell. People jokingly call this game a dad simulator set in space, and they are not far off at all. As a stepdad with a stepdaughter that I've been fortunate enough to see grow up from when she was just a little baby, it's hard for me not to be taken by all the charm and the warm moments. While there are tons of video games out there with just badass guys just ripping up enemies and spouting one-liners, it's really cool to just put myself in the shoes of just a regular guy who's just trying to look after his little girl, even if that little girl really isn't his. I joked on social media that I am committed to protecting Diana at all costs, and if anything happens to her, I will be irreconcilable for months. Just to check in with you all, that is still very much the case. Gameplay-wise, Pragmata reminds me a lot of Dead Space, but much faster and much snappier. It's a third-person shooter at its core, but the hook is that you play as Diana and Hugh more or less at the same time. As Hugh, you're firing at enemy bots and other things trying to kill you with your various firearms, but you don't really do a whole lot of damage to them, at least not at first. Diana has to use her android abilities to hack your enemies. When aiming at an enemy, you'll open a grid, and using the face buttons on your controller, like X, circle, square on the PlayStation, you'll navigate the grid, complete the hack, and then once it's successful and the enemy's weaknesses are on full display, then you can go on the offensive. I had no idea how this would work when watching previews of the game, but I gotta say, it is all very easy to do, and the moment-to-moment combat is very fun once you get the hang of it. Combat has been getting a lot more difficult as I've gone through the game though, as the number of bots have gone up, and they've gotten a hell of a lot stronger too, so combat is very fast-paced and you've got to be on your toes, so that is possibly going to alienate a few people who can't quite keep up or don't find enjoyment in that type of combat system, but so far I personally am digging it. Capcom absolutely put out another banger of a game this year, with Pragmata and Resident Evil Requiem now fighting for my personal game of the year. We'll see which game sticks with me the most this year, but so far, between Pragmata, Requiem, Luigi's Mansion 3, which I just finished as well, the Fatal Frame 2 remake, and Terminator 2D No Fate, I am eating pretty goddamn good so far this year. Now, before we wrap up and get into the game talk, I have got something that I am incredibly excited about, and it is time for me to let you know all about it. On August 29th, 2026, the Michigan Retro Game Expo is happening in Kalamazoo, Michigan. This thing is shaping up to be something very special. It's being put together by some absolutely amazing people in the gaming community, and these are folks that I've been fortunate enough to get to know over the last few years. Content creators SquarePegs, along with Mrs. SquarePegs, Game Dad, and LL Cool Games are leading the charge with this convention. The Michigan Retro Game Expo, or MERGE for short, is going to have a ton to see and a lot to do, as one would come to expect if you've ever been to a convention like this or even looked into gaming conventions. There's going to be some awesome vendors, there's going to be a lot of great energy, and there will be some fantastic guests, such as the immortal John Hancock, John Riggs, Gabbo the Giver, Dr. Scott from the Game Closet, and more. Oh, and BD Retro Mods is going to be there with a free-to-play gaming area, which is going to be fantastic. And the best part, somehow, for whatever reason, these wonderful people decided that I should be a part of all of it. They have invited me to attend the Michigan Retro Game Expo as a featured guest, and I could not be more honored. Okay, I'm not even going to pretend to play it cool here. I am so stoked about this. It is a huge honor, and I cannot wait to be there. I'm really excited to meet a lot of new people, talk about some games, and just be a part of something like this. So, that said, if you are anywhere in or around the Kalamazoo area, seriously, come check it out. It's going to be an incredible time, and I'd love to see you there. I'm also going to start promoting Merge on the show in the future and over on our social media pages, so apologies in advance if I get a little obnoxious about this, but it's going to be one hell of a time. Alright, and with all of that, I think that's enough catching up for one day, my friends. It is time to transition into the reason that you are all here today. It is time to talk about Parasite Eve on the original PlayStation. As is tradition here in the Wildlands, I put a call out on social media for anyone who wanted to sound off about Parasite Eve, so let's check in with the community and use some of your thoughts, comments, and memories to set the table. First up, we have Ender Phoenix, who reached out to me through channel3.gg, a fantastic Gaming Central social media platform that you need to check out if you haven't. Ender had this to say: "The opening music is burned into my memory. Then there's the first level of the opera house that lives rent-free in my head. The story was great, and albeit got really weird at the end, was different enough that I'd love for a remake at some point. And the monster designs were awesome." Ender, my friend, I felt this one. That opening music is absolutely burned into my brain too. The second I hear those first notes, I am right back in that theater. And yeah, that first stretch through the opera house, it really does just live rent-free forever, doesn't it? And I am absolutely with you on the story. It definitely gets weird by the end, but that's part of why it sticks, I think. The whole concept just swings big. Now, when it comes to a remake though, I kind of go back and forth on that. Part of me would love to see this game reimagined with modern tech, but the other part of me worries that they won't truly be able to recapture that same strange experimental vibe. Still, I'm not gonna lie and say I would not pick that game up if they ever did remake it. I would absolutely be first in line on the pre-order list. Next up, we had Dan chime in through Channel 3 as well. Dan said, "My main memory was soft-locking myself. I had made a behemoth of a weapon that I had been upgrading through the game, but then I added poison explosions or something like that to it, and it was completely ruined. I hope to take another run at the game someday, but don't have access." This was back in the original run. Loved the game though. Oh, Dan, no, you lived the Parasite Eve nightmare. And truly, I know exactly what you're talking about. You spend the whole game building up this absolute beast of a weapon, you're feeling unstoppable, and then one wrong modification, one weird effect, and then suddenly you're like, no, what have I done? That's the beauty and the danger of that system. It gives you just enough freedom to accidentally ruin your own masterpiece. While I love being able to put elemental effects on your weapons in this game, you can absolutely screw yourself over if you run into an enemy that is resistant to that element. And unless you're carrying multiple weapons, which is something I never did because it was very hard to balance multiple weapons at once, which we'll hear about in a later comment, I just avoided the fancy effects altogether and I went just for raw damage. I really hope you do decide to give it another shot at some point though, Dan, if you're able. I feel like you, of all people, are overdue for a Parasite Eve redemption arc. Heading over to our Instagram page now, the Little Gray Rabbit reached out with this comment. "I love Parasite Eve, and I think you gotta touch on the novel, part 1, and how the game is actually almost a sequel, and there are several references in the game to the events of the book." First off, Rabbit, I appreciate you calling this out because this is one of those details that makes Parasite Eve even more interesting the deeper you go into it. So yeah, for anyone who might not know, the game is actually more of a continuation than a straight adaptation. The original novel by Hideki Senna kind of lays the scientific and thematic groundwork, the whole idea of mitochondria evolving, developing autonomy, and essentially becoming their own life force. The events of the book take place before the game, and what you're seeing with Aya and Eve is almost like the next phase of that concept playing out. And once you know that, you start to notice these little references sprinkled throughout the game. It's acknowledging that history without needing you to have to read it. It just adds this layer of depth to the story that wasn't obvious at first, and once it clicks, it's really cool. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I would love to somehow read the original book one day. Curtis, a veteran Wildlander over on our Facebook page, had the next thought. Curtis said, I still remember the first time that I played this game. I didn't understand the weapon enhancement system at all. I was used to playing RPGs and first-person shooters, so I tried to just upgrade and use everything. That meant I wasn't able to truly upgrade a weapon to be strong enough to beat the game, so I essentially made it almost impossible for me to win, without a truly ridiculous amount of grinding. It took way longer than it should have, and the game lost its appeal for me. I really need to go back and try it again now, since I actually understand how the system works. Curtis, you are not alone in this experience. I mean, we just heard from Dan, who had a very similar experience there too. Trying to upgrade and use everything evenly is such a natural instinct, especially coming from other RPGs and shooters, but here, that's almost the exact opposite of what the game wants you to do. And if you don't realize that early on, yeah, you can absolutely back yourself into a corner where things just feel way harder than they should. Almost to the game's detriment, you pretty much have to keep your arsenal down to 1, maybe 2 items at most. Thankfully, with the right items, you can carry stats from one weapon over to another, but it's hard to balance, especially on a first playthrough, when you're not really sure what you're expecting going forward. But I love that you're thinking about going back to it now, because with that understanding, it's going to be a completely different experience for you. You'll start being intentional, planning your upgrades out, building something strong instead of just spreading things out, and I have to say, from my experience, it feels so much better. Definitely give it another shot if you can. I think it'll click with you in a way that it didn't the first time around. Next up from Facebook, Mark CA. Mark said, bought it back then at release, still have my copy. It's an absolute masterpiece. Sadly, both sequels are 100% shit. I can't disagree too much with you there, Mark. I was chatting with you briefly on the post that you had made online, but I do like the second one for what it is. Plus, it helped that it was trying really hard to be more Resident Evil-like, which is certainly appealing to me. The third game, though, was absolute crap, and I wholeheartedly acknowledge that. That game stone cold killed the entire series. I have no idea what the developers were thinking with that one and why they needed to experiment here. The first game had a wonderful foundation to build on. That's why the third game, The Third Birthday, is one of my guilty pleasures though. I sometimes see glimpses of what it is that they wanted to build there. Glimpses though, mind you. But in the end, it just didn't hit the mark. But the first Parasite Eve, that's the one people keep coming back to, and there is absolutely a reason for that. Switching over to our Blue Sky page, we had Steve reach out to us over there. Steve said, as a kid in the before YouTube days, the only way to watch all the cool SquareSoft 3D intro cinematics, the FMVs, was to just boot up the disc, often had to start a new game file too, so that's how every day I'd watch the openings to Parasite Eve, Final Fantasy VIII, and Chrono Cross. Steve, this just unlocked a core memory for me. You're absolutely right, and I feel like people forget how big a deal these FMVs were back then. There was no YouTube, like you said, so no easy way to just look them up. If you wanted to watch that opening again or any part of any game, you had to commit to it. That means booting up the game, maybe starting a new save, and sit through it all over again, and it was something that we happily did. Personally, I would sometimes keep multiple save files using multiple precious memory card slots just to be able to jump back to all of my favorite parts. And our last comment, which also came from our Blue Sky page, came from Megan, that gamer therapist. Megan said, this was one of my first horror JRPGs, and it is my all-time favorite. I used to have nightmares of being chased by Eve, and the soundtrack is still on my playlist. First of all, Megan, being chased by Eve in your nightmares? Well, that's pretty on brand for this game, I'd say. Though my occasional nightmare involving this game usually had the rats from the intro or that giant gelatinous mass. Even though we had our own nightmares, it kind of speaks to how effective it all was, right? Like, this wasn't just another RPG, it found a way to get under your skin a little. That concept, that sort of presence, the way Eve carries herself too, it just all sticks with you. And I love that this was one of your first horror JRPGs and it became one of your all-time favorites. That's such a strong entry point into the genre. Also, having the soundtrack still on your playlists? Same. Absolutely same for me. There's just something about that music. It's haunting in a way that doesn't fade. You don't just remember it, you keep coming back to it. A huge thank you to Megan, Ender Phoenix, Dan, Little Grey Rabbit, Curtis, Mark CA, and Steve for reaching out on our socials to share your thoughts on Parasite Eve with us all. If you want in on that action, make sure to follow us over on social media. I'll put a call out for comments when I'm preparing an episode, so if what I'm covering is something that you want to share your thoughts on, that's how you can do it. Oh, and don't forget to check out channel3.gg, as I am a frequent flyer over there and will occasionally solicit comments from that community too. Originally released in 1998 on the Sony PlayStation, Parasite Eve was one of SquareSoft's boldest swings during an era where they seemingly couldn't miss. It took the cinematic storytelling and RPG systems that they were known for and fused them with survival horror in a way that felt completely fresh. Set in a haunting late 90s vision of New York City, the game follows Aya Brea as she confronts a terrifying, science-driven threat that blurs the line between biology and horror. It wasn't just the gameplay that stood out. It was the atmosphere, the pacing, and the way it trusted players to sit in its tension rather than constantly breaking it. I had no idea at the time, but Parasite Eve would go on to carve out a unique space between genres, earning a cult following that still talks about it to this day. But here's the thing. Games like this don't always age gracefully. What once felt groundbreaking can sometimes feel clunky, slow, or just lost to time. So the real question is, when you strip away the nostalgia, and when you look at Parasite Eve through a modern lens, does it still have that spark? Or is this one of those cases where memory is doing a lot of the heavy lifting? Every time I sit with this game, I always find myself asking myself those questions. So today, I invite you all to ask the same as we take this journey one more time into the heart of one of the most unique experiences in gaming. So, let's gear up, Wildlanders. Grab your police-issue sidearm, a few extra magazines, and maybe a few wrenches if the urge to tweak our gear comes about. While we're going to be facing all manner of grotesque monsters and monstrosities, the real threat isn't the one on the outside. As we push forward on our mission to save the city, we'll learn that the worst foe lies within the self. Between the years of 1997 and 1998, I was riding high on the amazing memories I was forming with the original Sony PlayStation. The original Resident Evil had launched in '96, and I played that thoroughly for several years after. Resident Evil 2 was released early in 1998, and later, Metal Gear Solid dropped on the console as well. But in between all of that was Final Fantasy VII, released somewhere in 1997. I had no idea how much I was going to be sucked into that experience, and certainly didn't know at the time how special that game would continue to be decades later. I did everything you could possibly do in that game across hundreds of hours, but eventually I left Final Fantasy VII behind. While the Resident Evils and Metal Gear absolutely kept me happy, they were all missing something. Something I couldn't quite put my finger on, an experience I was searching for that I couldn't quite put into words. I don't remember where I saw it for the first time, a gaming magazine most likely, but at some point I came across advertisements for Parasite Eve, a new game from SquareSoft. Everything about the game looked incredible. A lot of the advertisements called Parasite Eve the, quote, cinematic RPG. SquareSoft's CGI cutscenes in Final Fantasy VII turned a lot of heads, and video games, like Metal Gear Solid for example, were leaning more into the idea of leveraging cutscenes and enhanced visuals to help tell a good story, and create an immersive experience. So, obviously, that caught my attention. But phrases like, a chilling adventure that could only come from the creators of Final Fantasy VII, and an epic sci-fi tale told through stunning 3D rendered sequences, and customized weapons, armor, and character abilities, all got me excited in all of the right ways. Maybe this is what I was missing in my life. Maybe this would fill the FF7 void left in me. I can't remember if this game was gifted to me or how exactly I acquired it, but eventually I got my hands on this game and could not wait to give it a shot. Parasite Eve itself is kind of a fascinating project when you look at how it came to be. SquareSoft at the time was experimenting. They weren't just sticking to what worked. They were branching out, trying new ideas, blending genres in ways that not a lot of other developers were doing. When I say all this, I'm thinking about games like Bushido Blade, Einhander, Brave Fencer Musashi, and more. With Parasite Eve, they took inspiration from a novel of the same name. Well, not so much as inspiration, but they found a story that they wanted to continue, and they decided to do it in video game format. The book I'm referencing is called Parasite Eve, and it was released in Japan, authored by Hideki Senna. The events of the book happened before the game, which is why, looking back now, a lot of the story beats in the game felt like they were building off of something deeper. With the book as the foundation and SquareSoft deep into the idea of trying new things, they turned Parasite Eve the game into something that felt cinematic, modern, and experimental all at once. I don't know if this is 100% true or not, but the popularity of survival horror games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill may have had a hand in the direction SquareSoft wanted to take. But instead of going full survival horror like Resident Evil, or sticking strictly to RPG roots like Final Fantasy, they found this sort of middle ground. Real-time movement, mixed with an active time battle system, weapon customization layered into a horror framework. It was certainly different and not at all what I was expecting back in the day. But that difference is a big part of why this game stood out then, and why people still talk about it now. So, while I've already hinted at what Parasite Eve is and what sort of experience it's trying to bring to the table, this is absolutely an experience best had firsthand. We're going to slot this game into our PlayStation and check it out together, but before we do, let's set the stage a bit more when it comes to what this game really is and what the story is actually all about. While we're doing that... Hey, Dee Dee, do you mind grabbing the CRT and setting up the PlayStation, buddy? Awesome. Aw, thanks, pal. Who's a good boy? Oh, you're just a good boy. I never put my CRT TV away after playing Fatal Frame 2, so setup shouldn't take too long. While Dee Dee works to get things set up, let's start peeling back some of the layers on Parasite Eve and see exactly what it is that we're working with. So, what is this game? Parasite Eve is an action role-playing game developed and published by SquareSoft. While I never knew this growing up, the game is a sequel to the novel Parasite Eve, which was released back in '95, as mentioned. In the game, players take control of Aya Brea, a rookie cop who's currently with the NYPD's 17th precinct. Aya lost her mother in an accident when she was a child, and she grew up with a drive to become a detective. Although quiet on the surface, Aya can be pretty stubborn and unyielding. Still, there's a passion and a fire burning within her that she doesn't even know about, that, unbeknownst to her, will be awakened this night. When the game begins, Aya heads to Carnegie Hall to attend an opera. But what begins as a breathtaking Christmas Eve event with hundreds in attendance turns into a fiery nightmare. Aya will have to trust her instincts as she faces a threat no one would have ever expected. A threat from within. Instead of sticking to just one genre, i.e. survival horror or RPG, SquareSoft found the middle ground in between. It was a different sort of experience in some intriguing ways. The differences that Parasite Eve brought to the table are a big reason why the game stood out then, and why people still talk about it now. The story was unique, of course, but the game's battle system took center stage for me personally, especially when I played this game for the first time all those years ago. We'll get into the battle system in detail when we slide this game into our PlayStation and play a bit of the game together, but at the time, there wasn't really a combat system quite like this one in Parasite Eve. We'll get into the battle system in detail when we slide this game into our PlayStation and play a bit of the game together, but at the time, there wasn't really a combat system quite like the one in Parasite Eve. Combining real-time movement with an active time gauge, with battles that took place right where you stood, it was the best part about the overall experience for me. Using the unique targeting system to take shots at your enemies with various firearms, and then being able to move Aya out of the way of incoming attacks. That is the secret sauce right there. There's some amazing things in this world, but few top being able to walk away from a hard battle in this game with nary a scratch on you. Add on top of that Aya's magical powers, all rooted in science by the way, and you had a varied toolkit that allowed you to lay down some serious hurt. Add on top of that an intriguing story about a woman hell-bent on destroying humanity by harnessing the power of her mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell for those unfamiliar, and you have a recipe for a game like no other to this very day. Alright, I don't think I want to put it off any longer. I can talk about how awesome this game is all day, but to truly understand where I'm coming from and give you a taste of what to expect, we're going to have to experience this firsthand. Thanks to our best boy, Dee, the PlayStation is hooked to our TV, so let me grab the game off the shelf here. Alright, here we go. Oh, that's right. Parasite Eve came packaged with 2 discs instead of the usual one, so it has this big, clunky jewel case. Let's open that up and grab our disc. Beautiful. I remember being sort of surprised that this game required 2 discs. The point in which you need to switch discs is pretty far into the game, but still. There was something about PS1 games with multiple discs that just made me feel like I had a premium product. Not sure if that was just me or not. Anyway, let's put disc 1 into our PlayStation and hit the power button. If I had to rank my favorite console startup sounds, this would probably be in the top 3, I think. Anyway, once the PlayStation logo fades, the words, "Published by Square Electronic Arts" appear on screen. After that, an opening movie begins to play that starts off with SquareSoft's logo. In this opening, which is sort of a trailer for the game itself, we're given a full-on showcase of Parasite Eve's CGI graphical chops. A slow pan of the Statue of Liberty gives way to different CGI cutscenes that we'll see as we play through the experience. The music here, which gives us a taste of Yoko Shimomura's amazing score, goes hard and always puts me in the mood to play this game. As the cinematic plays, we'll see words flashing across the screen. Resonance. Fusion. Selection. Conception. Evolution. Liberation. As the scene ends, we see Aya Brea, our protagonist, looking towards us with a fierce determination in her eyes. Words flash on screen, setting the tone for things to come. The worst foe lies within the self. After that, the game's logo appears. Parasite Eve. For the longest time, I would always make it a point to watch that intro. Not only did it get me in the mood for the game, but I was always in awe with the graphical presentation. For a game released in 1998, which was 28 or so years ago, those graphics were amazing. As the opening movie ends, the Parasite Eve logo settles in the middle of the screen, and we're seamlessly transitioned into the title screen, and the words, "Press Start" button appear. Go ahead and press it, and we'll get ourselves set up for our adventure. On screen, we can select either New Game, Continue, or Tutorial. The tutorial option is a good one to consider, especially if this is your first time playing the game. It is worth noting, though, that if my memory serves me correctly, the tutorial here is just a few still images explaining controls and whatnot. Valuable, yes, but I am here to walk you through all of the finer points as we go, so you can ignore the tutorial for now. Oh, that reminds me. Selecting Continue will obviously let us pick up a game we have in progress from where we left off, but we have to remember our PlayStation memory card. While this isn't a terribly long game, you are not finishing this game in one sitting, specifically if you want to partake in some of Parasite Eve's post-game content. Lucky for us, Dee Dee is cognizant of such things, and our memory card is safely nestled into our PlayStation's memory card slot, just waiting to have some data pumped into it. Since we're starting our adventure from scratch, go ahead and select New Game from the menu when you're ready to go. Now that you've done that, the screen goes black, and that's it. There's no option for difficulty, no additional menu to make any tweaks to your controller layout. We're just jumping in head first, so strap in. Things begin with the sound of piano keys setting the mood. Wind can be heard faintly as we start to see an image of the Statue of Liberty again, just as we saw in the opening teaser. Light snow falls as the camera pans down, giving us a clear view of Lady Liberty's face. It's nighttime in New York City, and the buildings in the background are lit up, a stark contrast against the night sky. As the camera pans through the cityscape, it eventually settles in front of several beautifully lit trees. As the camera zooms in, we can see a single red ornament inscribed with the words, "Merry Christmas, 1997. The music continues to do a great job setting the tone here as the camera now shows us the front of Carnegie Hall, which is a real location in Midtown Manhattan. Lines of people gather outside, presumably for a show of some kind, and as cars move past the front of the concert hall and people pile inside, the scene ends and we fade to black. Next on screen, we're on street level now. A limousine is parked on the side of the road, and a well-dressed blonde man is helping a blonde-haired woman out of the limousine. The scene here isn't a CGI cutscene anymore, as we are now in-game. The background is a pre-rendered one, and looks very polished, very akin to the pre-rendered backgrounds of the Resident Evil series back in the day. The character models here, the man, the woman, and also the valet clad in a red uniform, were again pretty decent for the time. The blonde man turns to the woman. The woman takes a moment to look around, then eventually lowers her head slightly. The man shrugs, and through text dialogue at the bottom of the screen, speaks.
"What's wrong? You're the one who wanted to come to the opera."
If you press X on your controller, it'll advance the dialogue along. There you go. The screen fades a little as the blonde woman looks forward now. At the bottom of the screen are the words, Name, Aya Brea. Age, 25. Occupation, NYPD officer. It probably went without saying, but the blonde gal is in fact our leading lady. After a moment, we'll be shown another screen where we can change Aya's first name. This here was like the thing back in the day, where you could change the name of your main character or characters. The earliest example of this for me was when I played Final Fantasy VII. I loved naming myself after Cloud, the main character, and naming everybody else after what friend I had that I thought best fit that character. When I played Parasite Eve, I would sometimes name Aya after whatever girl I had fancied at the time. I remember a friend of mine watching me play this game once, and when that girl's name popped up, I got the most aggressive, knowing glance. If you grew up with me and you're listening to this, I'm sure you're probably wondering who that person was that I named Aya after. Well, all I'll say is there are some secrets that I'm taking to the grave, my friends. In all seriousness, while having the ability to rename a prominent character after whomever is fine and a great way to self-insert, that does not appeal to me anymore unless the character I'm playing is truly a custom build. In this game, Aya will always be Aya to me now, and I can't think of any reason to rename her, so let's move our cursor on screen to End and select it to have Aya keep her name as is. Perfect. After the screen returns to normal, Aya speaks via the text splayed out below.
I don't know. You're right. I'll try to have more fun.
From here, the screen fades to black and the camera now moves to somewhat of a top-down view, showing Aya, her date, and the front entrance to the hall. Aya's date gestures to her.
"Aren't you glad you decided to come out with me? I even had my dad get the best seats for us tonight. So lighten up. You're going to have a great time. You'll see."
Oh my god, this guy's an absolute tool. If somehow this entire opera bursts into flames, I hope he's the first one to catch fire. Wouldn't that be something? At this point, even though there's no indicator on screen to tell us, the game gives us control of Aya. Now before we move into the hall, let's get used to moving Aya around really quick. Don't worry, this will not take long as there is nothing to it. Using your directional pad on your controller, Aya will move in the direction you press. No tank-style controls like one would expect from the likes of early Resident Evil games, which works just fine. However, there is one huge problem that, while you'll get used to it, is hard to ignore. Aya moves incredibly slowly. Go ahead and move her to the left a little bit and you'll see what I mean. Yeah, see how slow she is? It'll take you like half a minute to walk from one end of the screen to the other. It is awful. Thankfully, you can run though. Hold down your circle button and move back to the right. Not as fast as I'd personally like, but much better. When you're in battle, Aya will run automatically, but when you're out in the world like this, you may as well just keep your finger on the circle button as there is no reason to walk in this game. Ever. And that is pretty much it when it comes to movement. The opera is going to start soon, so we should probably get moving. Run, don't walk through the front entrance. When you're inside the main entrance, Aya's date will be walking next to her now. No time for walking, the show will be over by the time we get to the other end of the screen, so run past his punk ass and head through the double doors at the top of the screen. Once Aya opens the doors, the screen goes black again and the music from the opera comes flooding through. Inside the opera hall, the camera pans down from the ceiling and settles on the stage where several actors stand, all in medieval-like attire. The performance unfolds with quiet intensity. It's a story of love, longing, something just beneath the surface that doesn't quite feel right. The lead actress, who we learn later is named Melissa, commands the spotlight effortlessly, even though she doesn't really speak at first. Her bright red dress is immediately eye-catching. Soon, Melissa's character, Eva, walks towards the center of the stage for her big moment. Her voice is haunting, beautiful. There's an elegance to the scene as Melissa belts out her number. As the scene continues, we're shown another CGI cutscene as Melissa continues to sing with fiery passion. All at once, though, Melissa spots Aya in the audience, and the two lock eyes as if connected somehow. Suddenly, everyone on the stage bursts into literal flames. One person falls into the audience while another falls on a curtain, spreading the fire all over the stage. The audience, once captivated, is suddenly engulfed in chaos as bodies begin to ignite, spontaneously, violently, one after another. Flames tear through the theater in an instant. Screams replace applause. Panic replaces poise. And at the center of it all, Melissa stands untouched, calm, almost transcendent. No longer part of the performance, but something far more terrifying. We see Aya in the stands now, her police-issue firearm poised and at the ready. How she was able to conceal her sidearm on her person somewhere wearing that slim black dress will forever be a mystery. But aside from the obvious visual appeal on offer here, this was the beginning of my admiration for Aya as a character. While everyone else is running in terror, there she stands, ready to run into danger. Her date somehow happened to survive as well and is standing next to Aya in shock. He babbles out loud, terrified.
Jesus, I don't wanna, oh my God, Aya
makes it known immediately that she does not have time for any of this bullshit. She yells, "Go! Get out of here! Now!" And with that, Aya throws her shoulder into her date and knocks his bitch ass away. That is never not funny to me. After cleaning out the riffraff, we're given control of Aya once more. The concert hall is deserted, save for the charred remains of multiple members of the audience. All we can do, and should do, is head towards the stage and stop whatever this threat is. Hold down your circle button to run and head towards the top of the screen. Once Aya reaches the stage, we can see that Melissa is still on the stage, as if she's waiting for us. Once we approach her, Aya draws her gun. Freeze! NYPD! The actress, Melissa, looks to Aya. She almost seems to be slightly floating off the ground now. She looks to Aya and says,
You're the only one who seems to be fine. What? You should be awakening soon. What are you talking about? Listen, your cells are trying to communicate.
Melissa reaches her hand to the sky.
They're calling out.
The music swells in this moment, and after a quick camera transition, a battle with the mysterious actress begins. We haven't been playing the game for all of 5 minutes, and this opening went from 0 to 60 in no time flat. Looks like we need to take the actress down, so pay attention. While there's no on-screen prompts, this battle is more or less the game's tutorial battle. You can still move Aya around using the directional pad, and instead of walking, she's going to be running by default, which is good, but Aya is still fairly slow on her feet. Go ahead and move her around a moment just to get a feel. Alright, good, easy enough. But when it comes to combat, here's where you really need to pay attention. Okay, as far as what's on screen, there's not much to look at, which on its own is kinda nice. Looking at the top left, you can see a small box that has 2 things in it. First, our HP, or hit points. We have 45 HP, and as we take damage, that number is going to go down. If it's ever reduced to 0, Aya will fall, and it's game over. Easy enough, but what's most important and something you want to keep an eye on is the AT gauge. AT stands for active time and fills up as time passes. Once it's full, you'll hear a tone and the gauge will blink. At this point, and only at this point, are you able to take an action with Aya. Now, here's one of the things that makes Parasite Eve so unique. While you're waiting for your AT gauge to fill up, enemies can and will attack you, but you could still move around the battlefield. The dance that you're going to perform in battle is keeping your distance from an enemy and dodge their attacks. And once the gauge fills up, you can take an action at the best time. It's a really simple system, and it's time to put it into practice. Judging by your AT gauge, it is about to fill up. Nice, there you go. Now, go ahead and press your X button to enter attack mode. On screen, a green 3-dimensional targeting sphere will open around Aya. This is a representation of Aya's attack range based on her current weapon. We're standing close enough to Melissa that she's inside the dome, meaning that our attack has a high likelihood of connecting. Now, notice the little window that appeared next to the attack sphere. In it, there are 3 more important things for us to keep track of. First, you'll see 2 bullet icons. This means you can shoot 2 bullets with 1 attack. Under that is the quantity of total bullets that you have on your person right now, and in this case, we've got 12. And lastly, there's the target number, which is a cumulative number of enemies on screen. Right now, it's 1 because, thankfully, there's only 1 threat. And since there is only 1 threat, the game will automatically select it for you, so all you have to do is press X to commit 1 bullet to your target. And then X again to commit the second. There you go. As soon as you commit that second bullet, the dome closes and Aya commences her attack immediately. Direct hit, nice. You can see a little number 4 rise up from Melissa, this being the amount of damage you just dealt. You didn't shoot your second shot though, as Melissa takes a moment to speak to Aya again. Gesturing towards Aya, she lets out a laugh. Aya suddenly clutches her chest with her free hand.
What's happening? My body, it's getting hot.
All at once, an orange glow surrounds Aya. Something seems to change within her, and we can see something new has been added under her total number of hit points. a new bar appears called the PE bar, short for Parasite Energy. Something changed within Aya indeed. Melissa senses this and seems to be quite pleased.
Just as I thought.
Aya, understandably, freaks the hell out.
What is this? What did you do to me?
With that, the battle resumes and we have control of Aya again. Suddenly, blue and green energy spheres of some kind start to swirl around Melissa. As you move Aya around the stage, Melissa keeps herself locked onto Aya. It's like she's charging up an attack. Ooh, good timing. Your AT gauge is full again. Now, you're probably wanting to hit your X button to set up an attack, but resist the urge, my friend. When you loose an attack, Aya is going to plant her feet firm and commit to that attack until it's complete. If Melissa is in fact charging up an attack, and well, spoiler alert, she is, you run the risk of taking unnecessary damage due to some poor planning. Part of attacking using this battle system is waiting for the right opportunity to do so. And it's coming right now. Heads up, Melissa gathers up the energy swirling around her and channels it into an energy beam. Shit, move! Crap, we took that one right on the chin. Don't worry too much about it though. You took some damage, but you were still very much in this fight. Now that Melissa has let loose her attack, may as well unleash yours. Open up your targeting dome and let her have it. Awesome. Aya plants her feet and fires off 2 shots. Solid hits. There's a bit more to know about the battle system, but this fight has gone on long enough. Make sure you dodge the next energy beam by staying mobile, and as soon as you have the chance, let her have it again. Nice work, you're kind of a natural. After taking enough damage, Melissa will speak to Aya again.
Our bodies are communicating with each other.
Aya points her gun at Melissa, stunned by her words.
What? Communicating what? What do you mean?
We can't quite see it, but I'm pretty sure Melissa is grinning right now.
The more you use that power, the more you will become like me. Power? What power? Who are you?
Melissa looks at Aya, locking eyes now. She utters a single word.
Eve.
Aya shakes her head.
Eve? I'm surprised you don't know me, Aya.
You should know me well. Aya tilts her head slightly.
What?
Suddenly, the screen goes white. It's hard to see through all the white, but we're shown a vision of a hospital room. There's 2 beds. The one on the right is empty, but on the left we see a little blonde girl laying there. She's dressed in a light blue hospital gown. No words are spoken, and the moment lingers. What are we seeing? And how are we seeing it? Eventually the vision fades and we return to the stage. Aya holds her head.
What was that?
Eve lets out a slow, maniacal laugh as she quickly floats off stage. Aya draws her gun again.
Wait! Where are you going? I am not through with you yet!
We're given back control of Aya now, and there's only one thing worth doing, so let's follow her, stage left. The screen transitions to Aya back behind the big curtain now, and there's a huge hole in the floor that's easily visible. Go ahead and head over to it and see what it's all about. When you get to the edge of the hole, press the X button to examine it. Aya will slowly tilt her head down as she looks into the hole. She mutters out loud that she knows Eve is down there. Just then, backup from Aya's police precinct arrives. At this point, the game gives you the choice to either jump down or forget it. The best thing to do here, actually, is not jumping in the hole and heading back to the main entrance of the concert hall. Aya can talk to some of the police and medical personnel that show up there about what happened and even get some free healing as well as some extra ammo for her pistol. All great stuff, but in the interest of time, let's jump down and continue our pursuit of Eve as we try to figure out just what in the hell is happening around here. Aya jumps down the hole, landing on her feet. As soon as Aya regains her footing, we see that she's not alone. Standing in front of her is a little blonde girl in what looks to be a blue hospital gown. What in the hell? Is it the little girl from our vision earlier? Aya is as confused as we are, but decides to speak to the girl. She asks if she's alone and suggests the girl get out of there, being everything is all dangerous now. For just a moment, the girl just looks back at us. With what I assume is laughter, and creepy as hell laughter at that, the girl turns around and runs off. She fades from view, though it's not clear if she just ran out of sight or literally disappeared in front of us. Aya lowers her head slightly, pondering what it is that she just saw.
That girl. It couldn't be.
It's clear Aya is mulling something around, and it's pretty obvious that little girl means something to Aya. For now, though, that mystery will remain unanswered as we're given back control. Looks like it's time for us to hunt down Eve. Go ahead and head towards the end of the hall. The next area has us in the basement area of the theater. Several red doors line the hallway that stretches out towards the back of the screen. Looks like we have a lot of ground to cover, and Eve could be hiding anywhere. Man, it's crazy what's happening, right? What started out as a simple opera concert turned into bodies spontaneously combusting into literal flames. The only thing I'll say, though, is there's no way it can get any worse than this. Now, before we head down the hall, though, do me a favor and press your triangle button. Before we get in too deep, let's take a quick tour of the menu window. It's a pretty simple design, which I appreciate, and starts off with showing Aya's current level, core stats, and her equipment. One of the things I really like about Parasite Eve is the simplicity of the stat-based system. Speaking of stats, you have 6 main ones. You've got offense, defense, parasite energy, status recover, active time, and item capacity. Whenever you defeat enemies, you'll gain experience, as one does in an RPG-style game. Level up and these core stats will increase. But Parasite Eve does something a little different. If you look at the top right-hand side of the menu, you'll see a counter for bonus points. Whenever you level up, you'll get a pile of bonus points, and you can use those bonus points to either further level up your active time, making you take actions faster, your item capacity, so you can carry more items on you, or you can use those bonus points to upgrade a weapon or armor piece that you have. It's a nice little touch, and again, not super deep, but gives you a level of customization that allows you to make Aya your Aya. Personally, I tended to save up all of my bonus points until the very end of the game. By that time, I had my preferred weapon and armor, so I'd jack those babies up and show the game's end boss who they were dealing with. But the intricacies of that system are for another time. Speaking of weapons and armor, the weapons in Parasite Eve, the majority of which are named after various real-world firearms, are probably my favorite feature in the game. At a glance, it all looks simple, and it kind of is, but there's just enough depth under the surface to make it really satisfying. When it comes to weapons, you've got a few main types that you'll be working with throughout the game. Handguns are your bread and butter. They're fast, reliable, and great for consistent damage. Shotguns are available as well, and those trade away that speed for spread, letting you hit multiple enemies at once if they're grouped up. Rifles are something you can get your hands on, and they give you more range and power, but they are a bit slower and more deliberate. And then you've got things like machine guns, which lean into rapid fire at the cost of accuracy and control. Each weapon type has its own feel, and part of the fun is figuring out what works best for your playstyle. You're given a rifle somewhat early into the game, and I tend to use it for quite some time, but ultimately, I love the speed and punch of a good old-fashioned handgun. Now, where things get interesting is in how these weapons are built. Each weapon has a core set of stats, things like attack power, range, number of bullets the weapon can hold, and something called slots. Slots are a big deal because they determine how much you can customize that particular weapon. Some customizable upgrades can include being able to shoot X number of times in one turn, the ability to poison your enemies, or even take 2 turns in a row. As you play, you'll come across tools that let you transfer stats or abilities from one weapon to another. So, if you find something with a really strong effect but it's tied to a weapon you don't like using, you could move that over to something you do like, provided it has an open slot. It creates this system where you're constantly tweaking and refining your loadout instead of just swapping to the next strongest thing and calling it a day. The problem with that system, though, is if you were around for our Campfire Catchup section where we listened to some listener comments, it is very easy to slot the wrong sort of upgrade into your gun, and unless you have the right item you need to remove it, you might handicap yourself in some pretty bad ways if you're not paying attention. Now, looking at armor works in a very similar way, just on the defensive side. You've got different pieces like vests or full-on armor that determine your overall defense, increase your parasite energy recharge rate, or your resistance to critical hits. And just like weapons, armor can have slots that let you add or transfer special effects. Things like status resistances, stat boosts, or other passive abilities can all be mixed and matched depending on how you want to build Aya out. And that's really the beauty of this system. As I keep saying, it's not overly complicated, but it gives you just enough control to feel like you're shaping your own experience. You don't need to spend hours in menus to really understand it, but if you want to experiment and optimize, there's absolutely room for that, and it's a nice middle ground. It's all approachable, it's flexible, and surprisingly deep for a game like this. Alright, there's more to go over here, but we've been standing around for long enough. I'll explain more on the way, but for now, let's head down to the hall and start exploring a bit. Go ahead and close the menu out with your circle button, and just keep your head on a swivel as you move. The camera shifts as we head down the hall. All of a sudden, Aya halts in her tracks. She hears something and gets her weapon at the ready. We transition into another CGI cutscene. Skittering across the floor is a gray little rat. But it's evident right away that something is wrong with it. It rears back and holds its stomach and lets out a guttural moan from somewhere deep within it. We see a close-up shot inside the rat at the cellular level. Something we don't quite understand is happening, and the rat is changing from within. Its body begins to grow, and large, gnarly teeth protrude from its mouth. It lets out another inhuman cry. The rat's body breaks apart and expands, blobs of flesh falling to the ground. Its tail splits into 3 parts like a fleshy trident. With one more outcry of rage, the rat sets its sights on Aya. The CGI cutscene ends and we're back in control of Aya, and the game has us put in battle with the rat creature thing. Alright, get ready. You can freely move Aya around as you see fit. Your AT gauge is still filling up, so you can't take an action just yet. The rat begins skittering around, looking for a chance to strike. There's no telling what this thing is capable of, so for now, we're just gonna have to wait it out. Alright, looks like you can attack. The rat stopped moving, so why don't we see about putting a few bullets into him? Nice, solid hits. The rat is still alive though, and it immediately turns towards Aya. Alright, be careful. Fire is starting to engulf the rat's tail, and it begins to swing it around. Crap, get some distance, it's gonna toss that fire right at you. As soon as fire heads our way, it splits into 3 parts. Quick, try to position yourself between the fireballs. Damn, you weren't fast enough. Our HP is pretty low, so it might be in our best interest to heal up before we go on the defensive. As soon as your AT gauge is recharged... right on time. Go ahead and press your triangle button to open up your menu. There's 2 ways to heal up during and outside of battle. You can either use an item, or you can use one of your Parasite energy skills. Items are one-time use, but they don't rely on your PE gauge, and they happen instantaneously after you select the command. Parasite energy, on the other hand, uses PE. Also, while the PE gauge does regenerate over the course of a battle, the recharge rate will slow down the more you use your powers, so keep that in mind. For now, let's try out our new Parasite energy and heal ourselves up. Scroll down to the PE menu and select it. Now we're in the menu that has all of our unlocked Parasite energy skills. Right now the only one we have is Heal, but as you level up Aya, she'll unlock more abilities. Some examples are Haste, which allows Aya to move much quicker, Energy Shot, which does massive damage to a single enemy at the cost of your entire PE gauge, Slow, which slows down an enemy, and Scan, which allows you to scan an enemy for any potential weaknesses. The variety of skills makes Aya very versatile in battle, though a lot of her abilities are geared towards buffing her up or debuffing the enemy. While there are a few abilities that deal damage, most of that will be relegated to your firearm. Anyway, let's heal ourselves up so we can take this rat creature out. Select Heal, and you'll see a prompt that says Heal 1 will be used. Go ahead and confirm, and enjoy your soothing healing powers. Awesome, good as new. Your PE gauge went down a bit, but it'll recharge over time. Now, wait until your AT gauge charges up again so you can take another action. Until then, keep your distance. I am sure that rat has one hell of a bite. There we go. Time to line up another shot with your weapon. Beautiful. With the rat gone, the battle is over. Great work. On screen, we're awarded some experience points, and it looks like we picked up an item too. On the left, we see the item we found, in this case, Ammo plus 6, which adds 6 bullets to our ammo crate in our inventory. You can never have too many bullets, so hit the X button once to move everything to your inventory, and then hit it again to close it out. Aya takes a breath as we find ourselves back in the hallway. Aya speaks her thoughts out loud, wondering if Eve somehow mutated the rat. It's not any more clear what the hell is going on here, but we still need to keep moving. I'll always remember my very first ever encounter with that rat. After the fire in the opening, and now this creature that I watched split open in gory detail, I couldn't help but wonder what was happening. That's one of the things that's always pulled me back into Parasite Eve, is just how intriguing the story is, especially when it starts dipping into the science behind everything. And it doesn't take long before the game tips its hand that something bigger is going on. You kind of have that moment where you sit back and come to terms with the idea that nothing here is remotely normal. It's small in scale, but it sets the tone perfectly. Something is off, and it's only going to get worse from here. What makes it all so compelling, though, is how it tries to ground its horror in real-world ideas, or at least real-ish science. The whole concept of mitochondria and the idea that something living inside us could evolve, take control, and act of its own will. It's unsettling in a very different way than your typical monsters or zombies. It's not some external threat invading from the outside, it's something that's been with you the entire time. That idea alone carries a lot of weight, and the game leans into it hard. Aya herself, now having something awakened inside of her, starts to wonder what it all means as the story progresses, and she starts to wonder if she's a monster herself. I appreciated that angle, and I liked how nothing was clear-cut. Sure, it's easy to see what's good and what's evil, but it goes much deeper than that. Now, does the story always stick the landing when it comes to the science? Not exactly. There are definitely moments where it starts to spiral into that late 1990s sci-fi territory where things get a little, hand-wavy, if that's even the right saying. Terms get thrown around, explanations get a bit tangled, and you kind of just have to nod along and go along with the ride. Though, I think that is still part of the charm. For what it's worth, you don't have to be a scientist to understand what's going on in the game if you just pay attention, but it can be a lot. The story is trying to do something different, and even when it stumbles a bit, it never stops getting interesting, especially in how it is that it unfolds. Sure, there are cutscenes and character interactions, but I've always appreciated learning things as we explore. Speaking of which, let's continue our investigation. Head down the hall a bit and take the last door on your left. Inside the next room, things are a mess. The pre-rendered scene here gives us an idea that something happened here, but it's hard to tell. Wait, what is that on the desk to your right? Slumped over the desk appears to be a body, and by the looks of it, burnt to a crisp. If you look at it close, it looks a lot like a stick of beef jerky with arms, legs, and a head. Ugh. Well, we should probably do the sensible thing here since we are playing a survival horror type experience and go examine the body. Yes, you heard me. Walk over to it and press the X button. Yes, go ahead. It could have loot or something. I don't know. Alright, there you go. Now go ahead and press the X button. Jump scare! The body falls backwards onto the floor with a sickening thud. Sorry about that. Once you get your bearings, examine the dead body again. I know, but we have to be thorough. Once you do hit your X button again, Aya bends down, having found something. Looks like Aya found a key, a dressing room key more specifically. One of the doors in the hallway probably takes this. After hitting your X button again, Aya pockets the key. Good thing that voluptuous black dress of hers has pockets, apparently. Before we leave the room, though, take a good look around. Like in most games of this era, you can sometimes find other items or get your character's thoughts if you examine the pre-rendered environment. One thing to note about Parasite Eve is that you'll sometimes find steel chests in the environment that contain useful items. Things like weapons, armor, or consumables like medicine. These chests stick out against the pre-rendered environment, so keep your eyes peeled. Ooh, wait a second. See that corkboard right next to the desk? Looks like something's behind it. Oh yeah, that's the edge of a chest, alright. Head on over to it and use the X button to open it up. Inside the chest is the item Medicine 1. Which restores 45 HP. Nice. Press the X button to pocket that one as well. When you're ready, go ahead and head back out into the hall. We should probably figure out what door this key we found fits. Back in the hallway, we have plenty of rooms to choose from. Let's try the right side of the hallway, the door closer to the bottom of the screen. Why not? Inside the room is a wide open sort of dressing room, complete with mirrors, chairs, and lockers along the far wall. Our eyes immediately move to our left as we see someone in a clown costume sitting in one of the chairs. They spot Aya and move to stand, but Aya makes sure that's all they do. Now at gunpoint with his hands in the air, the clown pleads for his life.
Yeah! Here! Take it! Take everything! It's all on the counter!
Aya takes a breath and lowers her service weapon.
Don't scare me. I'm with the NYPD.
The clown lowers his hands and breathes a sigh of relief.
You're the one who scared me, lady. I was just getting ready. You know, only staff are allowed in here.
There was an incident here. You'll have to evacuate.
What? You're kidding, right? Hey, I'm not dying here tonight. See ya!
And with that, the clown is gone. So strange. He was kind of a dick, but at least we found a survivor. Hopefully he makes it out all right. As for us, we should probably go ahead and check this room. Oh shit, what was that? Was that the clown? We should probably see if he's alright. Go ahead and head back into the hallway. Everything seems okay out here, but just to be sure, let's head back to where we started the area off from, so start to head towards the bottom of the screen. Uh-oh. The screen goes a sort of black and white for a second, and everything is frozen in time. After a moment, color returns to the screen, and Aya automatically turns around and head towards the center of the hall. 2 mutated rats, just like the one we dispatched before, are waiting for us at the end of the hall. Welcome, my friends, to your first random-ish battle. For the rest of the game now, as Aya is walking around the world, there's the possibility that she'll fall into a random battle with enemies. Now, here's the interesting thing about random battles in this game. While battles happen in the space that you're in, which is cool in its own right, the game will only have battles occur in specific areas. I like to think of these areas as hotspots. This part of the hallway is a hotspot now, and anytime you walk through it, you have the chance to get pulled into battle. You'll start to pick up on where these spots are as you play through the game and revisit locations, and I highly encourage you to take advantage of that knowledge. Just like any RPG, you're only going to get stronger if you gain experience points, and in Parasite Eve, that means putting down some mitochondria mutated freaks. So, with that, get to work, my friend. Ha! Nice, that takes care of one of them. A regular hit and a critical hit. Make sure you're keeping an eye on the other rat though. With more enemies on screen, you have the higher risk of being smacked around. Ah, crap. You keyed in 2 shots like normal, but Aya only took 1. Your weapons can only hold so many bullets at a time, so when their magazine runs dry, Aya stops to reload automatically. There we go. With bullets refreshed, she'll automatically fire that second shot. Now, this is something you have to keep in mind going forward. Leading into the realism a little bit, I love that the developers made it to where the weapons have to be reloaded as you go. It's kind of a nice bit of realism amidst all the sciencey stuff. However, here is the problem with this particular mechanic. The only place you can manually reload your weapons are in the menu, outside of combat. When you're in battle, you cannot manually reload your weapon. You have to wait until the magazine is empty during an attack animation. Now, the bigger problem, as I'm sure you're figuring out, is that Aya stands still while she reloads, so while she's reloading her weapon, you are a sitting duck. Worse, if you're shooting multiple bullets and Aya has to reload in the middle of that, there is no way to get her to not fire off the rest. Basically, if you're caught in a reload animation while the enemy is attacking, you may as well just raise your chin up and take the hit. It's kind of frustrating, not gonna lie. And since there is no on-screen indicator of any kind telling you how many bullets are in Aya's weapon at any given moment, you'll never know when that reload animation is coming. Well, unless you're very aware of how many bullets are in the weapon and you're counting shots, but I don't know about you, but I can't keep that straight in my head. So yeah, this is probably one of the few low points when it comes to the overall gameplay experience. But with all of this in mind, this is why I personally prefer handguns as my main weapon where I can help it, because reload times are pretty low. Anyhow, we need to get back to taking out that remaining rat so we can look for that clown. But before we do, can we take a moment to appreciate this badass battle music? I don't know what it is, but this battle music is almost hypnotic. Instead of going for something loud or adrenaline pumping, it leads into this cool, almost clinical vibe. Like it's keeping you at arm's length rather than hyping you up. There's a steady pulse to it, layered with this eerie electronic texture that makes every encounter feel tense and just a little unsettling. I don't know if any of that actually makes sense, but of all the battle music that I've heard over the years, this one has always stuck with me. Anyway, did you kill that rat yet? Perfect. Once the rat expires, we get our experience point reward, and ooh, look at that. We have also leveled up. We're shown a screen where our base stats increase as well as our max HP, and we're awarded some bonus points. Nice. Absolutely make it a point to engage in as many battles as you reasonably can. Eve is shaping up to be a formidable opponent, and I'm sure the monsters you'll be facing as you go aren't going to get any weaker, so keep grinding, my friends. Now that we have control of Aya, let's continue to head back to the beginning of the hall. Once the camera shifts again, we're shown the previous view of the hall where we started things off earlier. Except something is different. There's a charred body on the ground at the end of the hall. Shit. Go ahead and run to it. Upon examination, Aya realizes the charred body was the clown from the dressing room. How did this happen? Did he spontaneously combust as well? Does that mean that Eve was here? It doesn't make any sense that bodies are going up in flames, but Aya is still unscathed. There has to be a reason, right? We need to find Eve and get some answers. As I say those words, it's hard for me not to think about the true core of this whole experience, and that's the relationship between Aya and Eve. As you play through the game, you'll notice this uneasy, almost intimate connection between the two of them. Aya Brea starts off as grounded and composed, an NYPD officer just trying to make sense of a situation that spirals out of control almost immediately. She approaches everything like a professional. Observe, react, survive. But the more she encounters Eve throughout the story, the more that sense of control starts to slip. It's because Eve isn't just some outside threat causing chaos. She represents something deeper, something that challenges Aya's understanding of herself and what's happening to her. Eve, on the other hand, is calm, calculated, and almost otherworldly in how she carries herself. She's not driven by panic or rage. Eve is 100% purposeful. There's a clarity to her actions that makes her even more unsettling, like everything that's happening is part of a natural evolution rather than destruction for its own sake. And that's where the conflict really takes shape. This isn't just hero versus villain. The story becomes a clash of identity, of control, of what it means to exist and evolve. A lot of this was lost to me when I was a kid, but adult me sees this much more clearly, and I have so much more appreciation for it now. As the story unfolds, Aya's journey becomes less about stopping Eve and more about understanding her, and by extension, understanding herself. The line between them starts to blur in ways that forces Aya to confront the possibility that the same power driving Eve might exist within her too. And that's where her growth really comes from. She doesn't break under that pressure. She adapts, she questions, and ultimately she chooses who she wants to be in spite of it all. That internal struggle, layered on top of the external conflict, is what gives Parasite Eve its weight and why their dynamic feels so compelling, even years later. Actually, while I'm thinking about it, what really elevates Aya and Eve's conflict is how perfectly Yoko Shimomura's music score mirrors their connection. The music doesn't just sit in the background, it reflects that tension between control and transformation. Aya's moments feel restrained and introspective, while Eve's presence brings in colder, more alien tones. And yet, there's a shared atmosphere running through it all, subtly hinting that they're not as separate as they seem. The music is just this brilliant piece of work that reinforces the game's central question. Where does Aya end, and where does Eve truly begin? There is a great example of this coming up, judging by all the work that you've done while I've been rambling. After acquiring the right key for the door at the end of the hall, Aya is able to move through the big double doors and finds Eve seemingly waiting for her. Eve is sitting at a large grand piano in the upper left corner of the room. Once we move Aya towards her, Aya draws her weapon. When Eve speaks, it's not Eve. It's Melissa, seemingly trying to keep control of herself.
I'm Melissa. I am Eve. I'm getting hot.
Nucleic domination has finally come to an end, once and for all.
It seems like Eve has fully taken over Melissa now. In a flash, Eve begins to mutate and change before Aya's eyes. As her body contorts and grows into a twisted form of her former self, Aya can only watch in a mixture of calm horror. Eve raises her now inhumanly long arms to the sky.
Once again, the day for the mitochondria to be free has finally arrived.
Of all the times you fight Eve throughout the game, this battle in particular stands out to me. As this fight unfolds, with Eve slamming down on those piano keys like she's rewriting the rules of the world in real time, this is where Parasite Eve really puts its themes front and center. This isn't just another escalation, it's a transformation. Melissa is gone, completely consumed, and what's left behind is something that sees itself not as a monster, but as the next step. And that's what makes this moment so powerful. Eve isn't lashing out, she's evolving. She believes in what she is and what she's becoming. There's no hesitation, no fear, just purpose. And standing across from her is Aya, who, whether she wants to admit it or not, is being pulled into that same orbit. Because this fight isn't just about stopping Eve, it's ultimately about resisting her. Resisting what she represents. The idea that this change, this loss of self, might be inevitable. Every movement here, every shot, every second of this battle, it all carries that weight. This goes for any future battle that Aya and Eve have together throughout the story. This isn't just about survival, but identity, choice, control. Because the real question isn't whether Aya can defeat Eve, it's whether she can face what's inside her and still come out as herself. It may not all be evident in this moment, especially if you're playing the game for the very first time, but these themes are a huge driver and why I think Parasite Eve has the staying power that it does, along with its unique gameplay elements. There's so much more we could talk about and experience together with this game, but I think this is where I'm going to start winding things down. When I step back and look at Parasite Eve as a whole, what always strikes me is just how unique this game still feels. This is one of those games that feels like such a specific product for a very specific era, but in the best way possible. You had SquareSoft at the time when they were willing to take chances. They weren't afraid to get weird, to experiment, to blend genres and trust players to come along for the ride. And Parasite Eve really feels like the result of that creative confidence. It's part RPG, part survival horror, part science fiction thriller. And somehow, against all odds, it comes together into something genuinely memorable. And sure, not every piece of it is flawless. The science can get a little tangled up in itself, and some mechanics feel rooted in their time. There are moments where you can absolutely tell this is a late 90s PlayStation game through and through. But really, that's part of its identity. Its rough, polygonal edges are baked into the experience. What matters is that even now, all these years later, Parasite Eve still manages to feel distinct. There really isn't much else quite like it. It has this incredible sense of atmosphere from the moment you start. That opening sequence in the theater is still one of my favorites in all of gaming because it tells you everything you need to know in a matter of minutes. The elegance of the opera, the slow building tension, the sudden eruption into complete chaos. It grabs you immediately and refuses to let you go. Before you even really understand what's happening, the game has already pulled you into its world. And once you're in there, it just keeps layering on reasons to stay invested. Aya Brea, as a character, is a huge part of that for me. She's still one of my favorite gaming protagonists because she feels so grounded in a story that becomes increasingly bizarre and surreal. She acts like a professional and tries her best to keep her head, but you can feel the weight of everything happening around her. And as the story unfolds, her conflict with Eve becomes so much more than a simple hero versus villain setup like I mentioned. It becomes personal, it's internal, almost philosophical. That's what I love most about Parasite Eve. Beneath all the mutations, the monsters, and body horror, it's really a story about identity. It's a story about what happens when your own body, your own biology, suddenly feels unfamiliar to you. That central idea, that the threat isn't some outside force but something already within, is such a clever and unsettling concept. It gives the game a different kind of horror, one that feels more intimate and much more invasive. And through it all, the game's music just elevates it. Yoko Shimomura's soundtrack is absolutely phenomenal here. It's haunting, atmospheric, stylish, and weirdly emotional all at once. Whether it's the eerie ambient pieces, the incredible battle themes, or the more somber character moments, the soundtrack does so much heavy lifting in building the game's tone. This is one of those scores that I still think about long after I put the controller down, and I'll still find myself listening to some of this music even today. And then there's the gameplay itself, which for me still holds up surprisingly well. The weapon and armor systems are simple enough to be approachable, but customizable enough to stay interesting. There's a satisfying rhythm to combat, and just enough RPG progression to make experimentation fun without ever becoming overwhelming. Even now, after replaying this game every few years, I still enjoy tinkering with builds, revisiting favorite sections, and just soaking in the experience again. That replayability is probably the clearest sign of why this game matters so much to me. I know it inside and out. I know where the story goes, I know what's around every corner, and yet somehow I still want to come back. That obviously says a lot. Not every game earns that kind of staying power. So if you've never played Parasite Eve, or maybe it's just been sitting on your backlog collecting dust for years, consider this your sign. Give it a shot. Experience this wonderfully strange little experiment from an era where big developers were willing to swing for the fences. It may not click with everyone, and I totally understand that. It's definitely a little weird, a little clunky in places, a little unapologetically itself. But that's exactly why I love it. It's stylish, eerie, ambitious, memorable, and completely unique. In a gaming landscape where so many experiences can start to blur together, Parasite Eve will always, always stand out to me. And with that, we've come to the end of the journey, my friends, at least for now. This has been episode 80 of the Retro Wildlands, Parasite Eve Re-Explored. Thank you again for tuning into the show today. Hopefully I did an alright job expressing how much this game means to me, and hopefully for others as well. It's no wonder so many people hold it up so high as a favorite, but I still feel like it's one of those games people either know about or are still somehow oblivious to. If you've never played it before, I hope you give it a try at some point. Even if somehow Square Enix decides to remake this experience, I am absolutely convinced that nothing will top the original experience. If you liked the show today and you want to show it and myself some support, please consider subscribing to the Retro Wildlands on your preferred podcasting platform. Subscribing to the show will ensure that you're notified the instant something new drops, and despite my schedule becoming quite busy again outside of the show, I'm still doing my best to create some awesome content, so I hope you stick around with me. You can also follow us on our social media pages or check out theretrowildlands.com for the latest on the show, check out some mini game reviews and blogs, or even check out some of the videos that I've made or links to podcasts that I've been fortunate enough to be a guest on. The Retro Wildlands is also part of the SuperPod Network, home of some awesome video game podcasts and other gaming content, and you could follow us over there at superpodnetwork.com. Other than this show, you can check out other awesome shows such as Neo Geo Go, Press Pause Radio, Retro Game Room with Sam and Sarah, Video Games Analyzed, and more. There's blog posts, videos, and tons of other content, so be sure to check all of that out by heading over to superpodnetwork.com. Now, if you really like the show and you have a little bit of time to spare, I would love it if you gave us a good review or even shared the show on social media with your friends. As far as reviews go, you can leave a star rating on the show over on Spotify, but you can also leave that and a written review over on iTunes, Podchaser, Podbean, and Podcast Addict, just to name a few places. Good reviews and shares will help the show appear in more search feeds, but more than that, it'll let me know that you like what it is that I'm trying to do here and that I am delivering something that you truly enjoy. But, like I say every single episode, you are under no obligation to do any of this. Just the fact that you're listening to my show right now is much more than I could have ever asked for, so above all else, thank you for being here. So, what's coming up next? As I was writing this script with what little time I've been able to spare lately, I felt bad for having to make you all wait so long for my next show. That said, I'm going to be sticking with the expedition log format for a few shows in a row going forward to give you all something to check out while I build out our next big one. That said, you can look forward to Expedition Log number 7, where I'll dive into Luigi's Mansion 3 on the Switch. After that, Expedition Log number 8 is going to be all about Pragmata, Capcom's sci-fi dad simulator. I had a fantastic time with both games recently, so I'm eager to tell you all about them. I continue to have wonderful gaming experiences, and as we fill out the audio version of the Expedition Log, I hope you can continue to come back and allow me to share those experiences with you around our wonderful campfire. Dee Dee and Dexter are wonderful company, as always, but things are always a bit more fun and adventurous when you're able to join us. Until then, my friends, my name is Nomad, and you can find me roaming the retro wildlands.